This is the RPM Podcast, starring Eric Brennan.
What a cheap, lying, no-good, rotten, four-flushing, low-life, snake-licking, dirt-eating, inbred, overstuffed, ignorant, blood-sucking, dog-kissing, brainless, dickless, hopeless, heartless, fat-ass, bug-eyed, stiff-legged, spotty-lipped, worm-headed sack of monkey shit he is!
Sam Ballard Jr.
Call me Sam. What's the matter? Haven't you ever seen a talking snowman before?
Neil Rutt III.
Who am I? The name's Yukon Cornelius, the greatest prospector in the North.
And Josh Matthews.
Sure was full.
Well, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the RPM Podcast. I have tears in my eyes. I'm Eric Brennan, and joining us today, of course, we have Josh Matthews, along with Tim Riggleman. But without further ado, I want to jump right into things here as we have a special guest on, fresh off a very successful weekend down in Trenton for the East Coast Indoor Dirt Nationals, the nickname that has adorned him throughout not only his indoor racing career, but his professional racing career, the Fire Starter. We're very happy to welcome Erick Rudolph to the RPM Podcast. Eric, how's it going, buddy?
Good. I'm glad we're here. How are you doing tonight?
Really good. We appreciate you taking the time out to come talk about not only this past weekend, but your racing career in general. But let's start with this past weekend. Second time that they've run an indoor event on dirt here on the East Coast. This one kind of tying into the indoor series that takes over the winter months here in the upper East quadrant of the country. And we have seen you run well before, specifically, down in Atlantic City, Trenton, and even at Wall Stadium on the inner track for Turkey Derby. I wouldn't say that it was a surprise to see you run so well on dirt, considering your racing background and what you've been doing all season long. But did you expect to be able to go out there and lead wire to wire and grab that win this past Saturday? And how does it feel to win that first indoor race of the 2018/19 season?
Feels great. I didn't really have any expectations. I always expect more out of myself than other people probably expect out of me. But, to win the most prestigious race in all of 600s, from Mississippi on over, I mean, that's just a huge feather in the cap for the whole team, including myself.
Now, watching the popularity of this race grow, in 365 days has been rather incredible. The car counts were so high, they actually had to add days of action in order to get qualifying in. Were you at all nervous going into the weekend about, even making the show, let alone being a contender to win? Or did you have that air of confidence on you after the strong season you had on dirt all year long?
With the indoor racing, it's always a thing where, the unexpected will usually happen. So I have a tendency to get a little bit more nerved up than I would for a normal race. But, like I said, the unexpected will happen, and I would have never expected to, win the whole shebang and not pass a car the whole time. It's crazy how lucky I was. But, even if I wasn't lucky, the car was just cutting and carving up the track, just silly. So I'm not sure it mattered, where we started any of them races. We just needed luck to, not get any wrecks or anything, but it was just incredible how the car was carving.
Now, let's talk about the car that you were driving. As we mentioned, you've competed in the indoor events before, but we are used to seeing you be a threat to win, down at Boardwalk Hall and all the other paved indoor races that take place. How did the deal come together with the car you ended up driving, racing, and winning with this past weekend? And is that a car which you have made starts in many times before? Did you race it this season, or is that the only time that you've strapped into that cockpit so far this year?
No, I've never drove that car before. The only time I've ever seen it in person was in Atlantic City a handful of years ago.
Wow!
When Lou drove it, that was a while ago. But no, things kind of just came together where he wanted to race, and I had a group of people here that we wanted to go race too. It was such an interesting event, and we just made it happen. Went and raced.
Yeah, and it all seemed to work out for you. And you mentioned the indoor stuff kind of being in a little bit of a league of its own. You say you usually get a little bit more amped up than you would for a normal racing event that you'd be competing on throughout the season. Why is that? I know that we've seen safety become a prime talking point, especially over the last year or so. Is it because it's a little bit more chaotic? Is it really madness in an arena, these indoor races, even on the dirt side where things don't look as fast-paced? They're still equally as compact, equally as intense. Why that additional pressure and those additional butterflies for the indoor stuff?
I really couldn't tell you. I mean, I could probably come up with that. I mean, I don't know how many cautions there really was. I mean, in a normal race, I might see 2, maybe 3. I mean, there was probably 15 cautions, and that's just, it's just on your head, especially when I knew I was going to be starting first. I mean, I planned on leading every lap. That's what I wanted to do, and I knew I'd probably have to do 15 or so restarts, and that's just that's the way it worked out, and that can be nerve-wracking.
Lap traffic is usually a big deal at a lot of these indoor shows. Is that something that you found yourself having to prepare for? I know the cautions kind of allow you a little bit of breathing room before catching the tail end of the pack, but is there a little bit of weariness there, knowing that you're catching some of the competitors who haven't been able to get up to speed as well as you have to start the weekend? And was that a factor as you went on to lead all 50 laps in that race this past Saturday?
You know what? I was out like this go around. I was excited to see lap cars. I knew how good my car was, how it was cutting and launching off the corners. I mean, as I was catching lap cars, I could tell none of those cars were able to do the things that this car was doing. So I knew once I passed a couple lap cars, that means there's a couple lap cars between me and second. So I was excited to see them.
Now, we got a bunch of indoor races left on the schedule heading into 2019. What are your plans? You going to run for an indoor championship this season?
Yeah, that's the intentions. And now, everything's all in place and the stars align properly and the cards fall the way I would like to see them fall. We'll get a couple wins. I mean, I don't expect to win them all. I'm going to try, but with the level of competition there is and the nature of the indoor race, and I don't see it happening. But we're gonna try. We're gonna try to have as much speed as we can, and hopefully the race is going our way.
Now, we've seen you run well before in the indoor stuff, and that kind of leads me to my next point. Former competitor on the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour, in fact, former winner on the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour. Over the last few years, though, you've been focusing on the dirt side. Second in Super Dirt Car Series points, a couple of track championships along the way. As our buddy Tim Riggleman pointed out, you and Doug Hoffman, the only two drivers on record to have a win on the Wheel and Modified Tour and the Dirt Car Tour. How does it feel to be such a versatile racer at such a young age? And does that translate to the mixed indoor events that you're dealing with now in 2019?
I don't really look back on my accomplishments like that. Maybe someday I will, but for I would say the indoor stuff really takes a unique skill set. So maybe doing a bunch of different things in my career, maybe that does help me out a bit when it comes to indoor stuff.
Now, as far as looking back and seeing the trajectory of your career, go ahead, Tim.
Are you there?
Yeah, Tim, go ahead.
Eric.
Yeah.
Eric, who was your spotter when you won the Modified Tour race?
I don't know. I don't think you were around yet, were you?
Yeah, gee boy, thanks. I was spotting for
Spencer?
Yes, I was at Spencer.
Man, that was a long time ago, though, Timmy. That's hard to remember.
Oh my goodness, totally unscripted. Well, you know what? While we're on the topic, Eric, the nickname Firestarter has been around for you for a while. I remember when I first heard your name when I started following short track racing in the Northeast. I saw people light up when they saw the Firestarter was on the entry list. How did that nickname come about? And are you a fan of it? You wear that name proudly?
I don't necessarily wear that name. I mean, I got a whole handful of different nicknames. I'm not really sure how that nickname came about. Um, it's, but no, I got a whole handful of nicknames. I don't really have any of them that stick, but I got a bunch of them. That's for sure.
Now, we were talking to Tim before we got on air, and he said the nickname the Firestarter came all the way back from your tour days, hanging out in the trailer, maybe up at Loudon, I think, Timmy?
Oh, Tim's talking, but we're
Yes,
not
sir.
here.
Yeah,
There
the
it
camper.
goes. Go ahead, Tim. Say that again. Oh.
Yeah. The Loudon days in the camper, hanging out in the camper, he got that name.
It's the delay that we're dealing with Tim right now is worse than Baghdad.
Me and Tim used to go on a few camping trips.
Mhm.
Went on a few camping trips. We did what, probably 2 or 3 years together, I think. No, at least that. 9, 10, 11.
Yeah. Now the last start that we have a record on the Wheeling Tour was 2011.
Yeah, 3, I believe.
And then the switch, then it started to lean towards the dirt racing side of things. And did you have an idol as a kid that you kind of wanted to follow a career path for somebody? Or did you just kind of go where the wind took you?
I have different people I look up to for different reasons, I suppose, but I didn't really pick anyone's career path to follow. Just kind of blew around where I thought would best suit me, and trying to pick a future.
Was there ever something you might have aspired to? Not necessarily following a career path of somebody else, but was there something that you always wanted to run, or a level that you always wanted to get to, maybe?
No, I mean, the level I always wanted to get to was to be a professional race car driver, and for that to be my main source of income in my career. And to be able to do that is a dream come true, and that is partially why the direction of my career went the way it did.
Now, Eric, when we have a bunch of short track racers on throughout the season with the RPM podcast, and a lot of us have been talking about Ryan Preece and how he's kind of carried the banner for the asphalt short track racer and finding a way to the top. Let's talk a little bit about Stuart Friesen, well-accomplished dirt racer, not only up here in the Northeast, but also in Canada. You've raced against him many times on the short track levels throughout 2018. And you can see what he's been able to accomplish thus far. Very competitive on the Truck Series side of NASCAR. It seems as though he's just a couple starts away from maybe getting that elusive first win. What is seeing a journeyman racer like Friesen be able to go on up to one of the top tier levels in stock car racing in America and run competitively do for a guy like you who may be on a similar path for you and your confidence? Is that something you like to do in your professional racing career?
It's not necessarily I aspire to do. It's not something I really think about. Given the right opportunity, I probably would do it. But no, it's not really something I dream about or look to do. But that I will say it is really awesome what Stuart Friesen is doing. I'm pulling for him as much as the next guy. I want to see him get his win, and I want him to put those guys in their place.
So short-term, long-term, what do you got planned for 2019 as far as your racing calendar career besides the indoor stuff? And also, where would you like your racing career to take you in 5 or 10 years' time?
2019 will look very similar to 2018. We're going to run the Super Dirt Series. Going to run Ransomville and Canandaigua weekly. Going to run, then after that, we'll fill in the schedule where we can. We'll probably see high 80s, low 90s races. And as far as long term, we'll we'll see what happens. But for the time being, I'm a professional dirt modified driver who dabbles in the indoor stuff, and we'll see what the future has in store.
Now, obviously, you have a lot of people that help you out. You mentioned being able to have the support they did this past weekend. Who's helping you in the upcoming indoor races on the pavement, and who helps you out on the modified car that you race? Essentially, I want to say weekly, but there's more than you got 90 races you may be running. That's a little bit more than one race a week. Who helps you out on the modified
Eric's
stuff
doing the
as
hard
well?
math.
Yeah, always.
I got my dad currently is retired. He's my main guy right now. And he's probably one of the smartest people in the Northeast as far as race cars concerned, engineering. My grandpa is getting up there in age, but he is without a doubt one of the smartest people as far as it goes with an engine. So right in my corner there, I mean, I got just tons of knowledge. I am a little lacking on the physical help in the shop, but I got people that help me when they can, and I appreciate that. And they go to the races when they can. 90 races a year is tough. Getting help is tough. A lot of my crew works, but they do what they can, and they're appreciated for it.
I was gonna say, I don't know how you physically can keep up with 90 races in a season. I mean, from my end,
you got to keep in mind we're not going. A lot of them are 5 or 6 hours away, but a lot of them, Ransomville's in town, and then I go down the road an hour and a half. Go to Canada on Saturday, and then go to Utica on Sunday, which is another hour away. So there's a lot of time spent in the truck. And then between, going down the road, we'll take turns driving and sleeping and keeping ourselves fresh.
Honestly, it's amazing to me that to keep that schedule, and I respect you all the more for being able to do that. Now, from a more of a physical side of things, with the dirt versus asphalt or dirt versus let's just go with pavement because I know we're doing concrete indoors. Is it easy? Do you find it easy or more natural for you to be able to switch from your driving style on pavement versus the dirt, and the type of cars, or is that something that kind of clicks quick, or do you have to remind yourself, okay, no, I don't do, I have to play with the throttle differently here or something like that?
I'm not sure. I'm not really sure what you're asking, but I will say that I'm only getting better now, but I mean, each year, looking back at what I'm doing and giving myself a fair judgment. My first couple of years, I really wasn't, that good, and that's just how it's going to be for everybody for the most part. It's an experience game, and I feel like there's no reason I shouldn't continue to get better with my driving and knowledge, and knowledge on the cars and how to make them go faster and how to better maintain them. And I will say that the asphalt, I feel like giving the right car can make someone possibly look better than they really are.
Okay.
That is true with the dirt. You need good equipment, but I think it is more driver related. But you still got to be able to drive on asphalt too. But I think it is probably more important on the dirt. I will say that.
Okay. That's fair. Now, one thing I want to ask you regarding Trenton and the dirt, how did you personally feel about the track? Do you think that the dirt was proper? Do you think that it was packed and prepared well, or would you have changed something on that end for preparation for the actual dirt itself?
I'm really easy to please. Thursday for our qualifier, the track had a little character and it has a few rough spots, but I like that. I think that keeps it unique, keeps it fresh, and keeps it interesting. Everyone's dealt the same track, so you're all racing on the same track. So you can complain about it, but the bottom line is everyone's racing on the same thing. Friday's races, I didn't participate in. We were only spectating, but I thought those races were great. The qualifiers were real good. I felt like I left entertained. And Saturday, I honestly couldn't tell you how the racing was, but I liked the track. I never had to leave the bottom. Not sure if that's a good or bad thing as far as watching, but I mean, I had no reason to leave the bottom. It was just carving some ice. But no, I thought it was a well-run production. Given, I'll probably try to be back next year. And yeah, I thought it was a neat event.
Now, seeing the success that you had on the East Coast Indoor Dirt Nationals, the biggest indoor dirt race of the year, the Chili Bowl Nationals, is coming up in just a couple of weeks' time. Is that an item that's on your bucket list, especially after seeing how well you ran in Trenton?
I've gotten that question more than you'd think. I would like to do it. It is a big time commitment. I mean, getting out there and getting back, and I don't really have a midget, so that'd be a problem. But it really is the most competitive race in the world, in my opinion. I mean, it has the best of the best from all over the world, all over the globe. So I mean, and they got 300 cars. I mean, that's pretty intimidating in its own right, but I'm not sure I'm ready for that. But I mean, if I given the right opportunity, and it's not something I could back down from, I would have to go do it when I.
Yeah, as Eric mentioned, just happened to catch for the fifth time in the race's history over 300 entries for the Chili Bowl Nationals. And Eric, I would say that your results this past weekend may bump up your resume a little bit for people who are still looking for drivers leading up to that event. We talked about your versatility as a race car driver. Is the modified your favorite car to drive throughout the season? And is there a car, we just talked about Chili Bowl, that you would like to get behind the wheel someday that you haven't driven just yet? Even though that list isn't that very big, I'm sure, because you've driven a lot. Any car that you would love to get behind the wheel of immediately?
Absolutely. I wish I had all kinds of toys that I don't got. I mean, I would like one of them trophy trucks that I see on TV.
Wow.
Yeah, I would like one of them. That'd be fun. I'd like a rally car for the road. I'd trade in my S10 for a minute for a rally car. I think that'd be sick. And also, those slingshots they race indoors. I really would like to add one of them to my collection for stunts.
What kind of stunts?
High flying.
If and when that opportunity becomes available, please make sure we are there to film. That's all I ask.
He's gonna drive it through an RV or a camper or something.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have. That's a problem.
I'm sure Hartwig has a couple laying around somewhere.
Incredible. Eric, we can't thank you enough for the time. We know you got a bunch of races coming up to close out the indoor season. Again, the winner of the 2018 East Coast Indoor Dirt Nationals in Trenton, Eric Rudolph. Eric, thanks for taking the time to join us tonight.
Yeah, no problem. You got my number. Anytime you want me on, just let me know.
Hopefully you'll be back in a couple of weeks talking about more indoor success.
I was after you win Allentown or Atlantic City or however that works out. Yeah, we'll talk to you then, right?
All right. Well, that'd be a nice plan. That'd be righteous.
Well, we'll hold you to it. So, best of luck. Merry Christmas to you and your family. Happy New Year as well, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy holidays, guys.
Thanks.
Once again.
All right. Thank you.
That is Eric Rudolph, again, the winner of the East Coast Indoor Dirt Nationals. And again, a big thanks to the RPM podcast agent, Tim Riggleman, for hooking that up for us. And Tim, I want to turn it over to you for a minute. You've worked with a lot of different drivers throughout your career as a spotter. How special is, and I'm not just saying this because he was on the show, how special of a driver is a guy like Erick Rudolph, knowing that he can get out of an asphalt modified after he had success and get into all these different types of vehicles and just run with it? Compared to some of the drivers you've had a chance to work with, where does Erick Rudolph rank in your eyes?
I think Erick Rudolph is probably the most underrated driver in the Northeast right now. He can drive anything, and he does it without thinking. Like, he just drives it, and he's really good. And like I said on the first time I was on your podcast, for me, he was like the fountain of youth driver for me. Like, he made racing fun again. Mm-hmm. You know, the kid's just good. He's funny, and he can just drive.
I always admired.
There's no doubt in my mind.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Tim.
There's no doubt in my mind that he could be successful in top 3 in NASCAR if he put his mind to it.
I always admired the driver who was willing to wheel anything. I mean, you know, obviously Kyle Larson comes to mind, Kyle Busch, Kurt Busch, you know, after they both, Kurt actually got the chance to race in Indy 500. Kyle was going to until somebody stepped in and told him no. Erick Rudolph seems like that kind of guy. He seems like the one who, he doesn't care how fast it goes. He doesn't care how safe or dangerous it is. He doesn't care whether it's paved, dirt. He doesn't care if it's an oval. Sounds like he's also possibly into the road racing thing, being that he wants a trophy truck to have for, you know, his personal collection as well. Like you said, Tim, it just seems like if he can wheel it, he's going to try to wheel it, and odds are he's going to wheel it pretty damn well. And he proved it this past weekend in Trenton. And Tim, you were the only one of the three of us that was at the race. How was it? Even though Eric led from, you know, green to checker, I got to watch some of the highlights from GSP Productions. It looked like a good race. I mean, cautions aside, it looked like the track had a couple of grooves, looked like there were comers and goers. It looked like it was entertaining. What was it like from your eyes?
Yeah, it was great. You know, when you go to the indoor races, you got to have in the back of your mind there's going to be cautions. That's just part of the game there, you know. And once they get spread out, they start the race. And it was really good. The track was excellent. It was no dust. Every time a little pothole would develop, they would stop the race and fix the pothole from getting worse. The track crew did an excellent job with that. And the racing was great. I thought it was great.
Actually, I'd like to get at some point. I'm sorry, Tim. I was just at some point, maybe again, while there's no shortage of topics or guests, maybe get a couple track crew guys, and because I was actually intrigued there. I saw some video of them getting out there to repair one of the potholes that developed, and I mean, so they're filling it in with the dirt. They got the jumping jack out there, and we're compacting it, and that was I found it interesting. I'd like to know more from those guys' end of things. But go ahead, Tim. I'm sorry. I interrupted you because I'm a jerk. Or don't.
Oh, no, I thought everything was great. The 3-wide pass, and, they passed back and forth.
The video clips I saw were actually, I mean, it looked like a good show. I mean, last year was an incredible show. This year looked like another incredible show. I had a Christmas thing to do with my my kid and my wife, so things happen. But I wish I was there. Just good all the way around. Although Eric, you said it was GSP Video Productions. I think they changed their name because that logo was not in place in the corners of that video.
I could be wrong. I could very well be wrong. And now I'm going to fact check myself during our next break. I will say, though, to the entire indoor group, everyone who steps behind that to make that all possible, think back a year ago at this indoor race in Trenton when they first announced that we're going to do something on dirt. How many people, and Josh, you could remember this as well because we got those 2 suites and we got a bunch of people to come out with us. And it seemed like it was pretty 50-50. Some people thought there was going to be a mess. Some people thought it was going to be kind of cool and a one and done deal. People actually said to us, "Oh yeah, I got to go to the first one because it might be the last one." And look what happened this season. I mean, increased car counts, increased participation. And again, even though Eric led wire to wire, I still feel as if that was an incredibly competitive race. The qualifying events leading up to it Thursday and Friday proved just how tough and how racy that track really was in a good sense. And like you said, the track crew, what a job to provide a racing surface on such short notice that was enjoyable and competitive to watch.
Yeah, they put that whole thing together within a couple days. I mean, if you think about the truckloads of dirt that have to come in, and then grading and compacting it, and then breaking it in, all the equipment, it's quite the undertaking. I mean, think about not that when they do Atlantic City that it's not work, but you have this added step of all this dirt that has to come in, and it's quite a feat. And like you said, the increased car counts and everything, because a lot of people were unsure. We hadn't seen it, and we weren't sure how well it was going to work out. Was the track going to be prepared properly? Was it going to hold up? Were the cars just going to dig in and destroy it? But they made it work, and people saw that, so they came back, and it was a good event. And I think it's great. Keep doing it, and fine, do that one as dirt. Keep Atlantic City as concrete. However, keep changing it up. It's fine. It's great. They have something. They have something that's working. I think is
As Eric Rudolph mentioned, I thought they had a little bit more time off. It turns out I'm wrong. If you go to indoorracing.com, fueled by VP Racing, Allentown's only a couple days after New Year's. It's going to be January 4th through 5th. Then we have Atlantic City, January 25th through 26th. And then they'll wrap things up in Syracuse, March 8th through 9th. And for more information and tickets, you can visit indoorautoracing.com.
Eric, where will you be for all that?
Well, I was gonna try to make it home for Atlantic City, especially because I think I can grab a flight out of Concord to AC. But I got a couple things going on, including a trip to Disney in February.
Oh.
So that's taking place, and trying. I got to see the Mickey. So this gives us an opportunity to reset a little bit. I'm Eric Brennan, and we are joined by Tim Riggleman and Josh Matthews. Scott Riggleman wanted to be here, but duty called. It's the holiday season.
He's getting honked at right now.
And there's a lot of cars that got to be towed, especially down here in Charlotte. Sam Ballard Jr. was hoping to be back with us. He had a work commitment as well.
Who?
So it is the three amigos that are going to be bringing you some racing action. And, after we had the opportunity to talk with Eric Rudolph, now we can kind of go into some of the national stuff that has been making news over the last couple of weeks, which we kind of put on the back burner because of the incredible guest list that we've had put together, courtesy of the Riggleman family. And so we have a chance to kind of inhale, take a deep breath, and kind of look at what we have coming forward. And I think the unfortunate news in the NASCAR world, I think, gentlemen, is that the biggest story of NASCAR really isn't going to take effect until 2020. And that is what sounds like will be an industry overhaul, not only on the schedule side, but also on the sponsorship side. Steve Phelps was quoted in a number of articles these past couple of weeks about that major shakeup coming to the schedule itself. And with that comes a new philosophy for sponsorship and advertising dollars, not seeking a sole title sponsor. Mainly, it will probably be called just the NASCAR Cup Series.
But will they? I'm sorry. You said it. I just want to jump right into it. Would it be the NASCAR Cup Series sponsored by or brought to you by, or are they going to just be like, that's it, and then you get your name on priority TV things or something?
Yeah, it's hard to tell how they're, because remember that we started to see this movement a little bit when they began to remove contingency sponsors off the sides of race cars, and they instead put those emojis in place, and they dubbed that as a spot that belonged to the Race Teams Alliance that they could sell. I will say the politics in NASCAR is ugly and muddy right now, and I don't really like it. It goes with a lot of things that are taking place when you talk about politics, but nevertheless, it's kind of confusing, and I don't mean to embrace in juvenoia, which Josh, you're the one who told me what that actually meant.
Yeah,
I really wish that we can go back to a simpler time. Where it wasn't this murky and muddy, and the conversation in the offseason wasn't about charter sales and things of that nature. Like it should be about just the racing and who gets a shot, who gets an opportunity, and it seems to be so much more dirtier than that. And I don't know of a better term to say it. It's just not what it used to be, and it's frustrating.
Yes, you do sound like the angry old man that's yelling at clouds and saying, whatever, and Pepperidge Farm remembers and all that garbage. But you're not entirely wrong. And I think a lot of people feel the same way. But then there's this giant clash as to what was the golden age. What should we be going back to? Because nobody can agree on that. A lot of people want to go back to the old NASCAR and stuff like that. But as Eric Graham will point out, guys are winning races. There would be 8 cars or fewer on the lead lap at the at the end of the race and things like that. So no, we want to see him finish closer. Well, then you got to come to more of the stage racing and things like that. But other people are against it. It's trying to find this. You can't make everybody happy, but everybody keeps trying anyway. And maybe NASCAR cycling things too fast. So maybe this delay, which you sound almost a bit upset about, with that it's going to take another year. Maybe they need that so they can structure this properly instead of rushing and throwing it together and saying, well, let's try this and hope it works. Maybe they can put a little more thought. It doesn't mean that it's going to work. They could royally F it up, but maybe they're going to give themselves the breathing room to give it a better shot. And to also better prepare the fans for what to expect as they get closer. Like I'm just thinking there's different things out there, and you're talking about the politics end of it too. Honestly, though, if you're looking at this as the premier, thing, the top levels, and where people are going to get noticed. I mean, like if you make it into those levels, then now you are a household name, and you're going to get sponsorship money and deals and commercials and all that. Well, now you're involving money. And of course, politics is going to follow in. I mean, there's no way around it. Unfortunately, I think it sucks, but I mean, I think that's the harsh reality of no matter where you live, no matter what you're into, no matter what country or political system you have, when there's money, politics ends up getting involved.
Yeah, and I guess it just wasn't as obvious back when I was a kid. First starting to fall in love with big league stock car racing, and I don't have the article in hand, but it was an article that was referenced a couple of days ago. I know that Adam Stern of the Sports Business Journal is becoming one of the top auto racing reporters because he covers it from a money side and he also covers it from a news side. It wasn't his story, but he did reference to it at some point. But it was a direct interview with Steve Phelps following, I believe it was a bicycling event in upstate New York. And Steve kind of touched on the fact that he is completely changing the landscape of the sport. And to some, I think those words will automatically make you say, oh, not again, because it seems like the NASCAR has been in a state of change for the last 15, 20 years, which, most sports are like that. However, in this case, I happen to like the direction that Steve's talking about. They're looking at privatizing International Speedway Corporation. They're also looking at revamping the schedule, as we mentioned. I read from some industry insiders that there may be a cup race at Eldora as soon as 2020. There may be the idea of midweek races. There may be the idea of double headers on weekends, which is something that Eric Graham has been a big proponent of over the last couple seasons. That bit of difference, that bit of a shakeup, that bit of a change, to me, is the direction the sport needs to go, as opposed to being just the constant same 36 race schedule, same 22, 23 tracks. You got to switch it up a little bit. You got to kind of dumb it down to reconnect with the grassroots. That way, guys like Eric Rudolph, who we just talked to, can go out and buy a truck to go run a couple races if he wanted to. And I think we're starting to see some hope in that.
Now, I think it would have to be maybe introduced gradually, but the midweek races, I mean, we all watch the duels, right? That's a Thursday, so, I mean, it's not impossible. I think it would work, but again, it depends because you're talking about a very possibly grueling schedule for these, top-level teams and, moving cars and backup cars around, because I don't think we're going to see that go away anytime soon. Now, you're talking about changing up the schedule. I saw a post, looked like Rockingham, I believe, was doing some cleanup and getting the track ready for, possible events. Not that they didn't mention NASCAR at all, but, that seems to be kind of the rumor that's going around is like, hey, maybe they're going to do something there. Now, Eric, I want to mention, and Tim too. Tim's been a bit quiet in this part here so far, but we talk about changing up the schedule and the tracks and all that. Now, what about something kind of like what F1 does, where every other year they go to this track? So you go to, I don't know, let's say North Wilkesboro, and then the next year you don't go there, but then the year after that you come back to it. That way you can still get other tracks in, and they still can have dates, and it won't be all the time. But it will shake it up a little bit.
I really like that idea for the season finale, because I think you can't change the finale to a different track every year, because you need it's November, it's second, third week in November. You need a warm weather climate. I would like to see them do, Auto Club, Homestead, Vegas, Phoenix.
Don't say Vegas. No.
Well, just thinking warm weather climate. It's not really about the racing products, but
right
I would
there,
like to see that.
That's the problem. It should be about the racing product.
Well, in reality, the racing product should. Somebody posted a video of the 2003 Bud Shootout the other day, and I happened to catch it. And I mean, that's a plate race, right? But it was so different then than what it is now. And then I was showing Haley, my fiance, I was showing her the finish of the 2001 Cup race in Atlanta, the one that Harvick won.
Okay.
And they had 5 cars swapping the lead in the final 15 laps on a 1.5-mile track, because they could run close enough where the cars weren't so aerosensitive that it broke them 3/4 of a second apart from each other.
Right.
I mean, technology got us to the point that we're at today. The racing wasn't always bad on the 1.5-mile, ovals, and they're trying to fix that, albeit artificially, but they're trying to fix that. I'm hoping it doesn't stay the way it is now forever. So saying that we're not going by the product as it is today, then yes, I would include Vegas on that list, just for the fact of it can be conducive to good racing under the right circumstances.
Okay, I agree with that. Yes.
You did make a good point though about the schedule, and this is something I don't remember who said it. Might have been Matt Weaver of Auto Week. June, July. There's really not a lot going on the sports side. And let's go back to Erick Rudolph for a minute. He talked about how he runs 90 races a year. A lot of those are midweek shows. Look at the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour. They run a lot of their summer races back when they ran Bristol, Thompson, Stafford, Wednesday, Thursday nights. A lot of the races that Eric runs on the dirt side, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday nights. New Egypt's got some Tuesday, Thursday night shows. Bridgeport, Tuesday, Thursday nights. There is not a lot going on in the major realm of the sports world in June and July. Football's over. Baseball races don't matter. Hockey, basketball's not going on. NASCAR has an opportunity to own the sports landscape if they take up these available windows in television time with some midweek races. And it seems like a no-brainer to me. When people go out for Thursday nights, because some people do go out for Thursday nights, if there's no hockey game on, no football game on, and the baseball game doesn't really matter anymore because it's midsummer, racing could be something that draws people and captures their interest a little bit because there's nothing else happening. And I think that's an opportunity they need to take now. So that's my opinion.
I don't entirely disagree. The theory is solid, but it only really will apply to the top levels or things that are televised. And unfortunately, the modified races that you see on TV are always delayed. Sometimes by a week or two.
Right.
So I mean, if you're running a midweek show, you need it, and you want to take advantage of that. Let's show it live. Now you're talking about production teams, and there's a whole separate cost, but it would work for NASCAR. But now let's say, it's Bridgeport or whatever. Look, I used to go to the Wednesday night thrill shows at Englishtown, and but I was worn out the next morning. I'm not going to lie. You're there till 11 midnight, and then another hour to get home. You don't get a whole lot of sleep, and you're going into work. So working a regular full-time job, for me, it was difficult to go and watch that. If I could watch it on TV, absolutely down, totally, because then I could go to bed. I switch it off and go to bed. Who cares? So I'm not against the idea, but it's going to be tough to fill the stands, and if you don't get the people in the stands, I don't know how well the tracks are going to be able to cope with that. Is my fear.
Tim, you've been running, you've been following a lot of the Wheel of Modified Tour over the years, and you've been part of a lot of midweek shows. Do you think it's a good idea for the Cup side to get involved in some of that stuff?
I think you made a very good point that they have that window where there's no more other sports going on, and they should capitalize on that. And like Josh said, people do go to and watch the Thursday, Daytona race. So it can be done. I mean, back in the day, we used to go to New Egypt Speedway every Wednesday to watch the modifieds, and the place was packed. It can work on both local and the big stuff. And to go back to what you were saying, I would love to see the trucks go back to a lighter schedule with the shorter tracks. It can be done. I don't think NASCAR is interested in that. I think they like the big ticket names on the big speedways. So I don't know if it's going to happen or not.
It sounds like the Truck Series is the best one to kind of work with this. And I think, Josh, you really hit on a good point as well. If you're going to have midweek shows, yes, the TV audience and landscape is wide open, but they have to race in a market that it's going to be supported. And I think to Tim's point, that's going to be at these local short tracks where they're already getting midweek support for their regular shows. So Eldora works because Eldora's got a diehard fan base in the area, and they're willing to go out to that track on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to see their modifieds and their sprint cars and the NASCAR trucks when they come to town once a year. I feel like that if they could find a couple of more regional venues like that, maybe some of the short tracks out here in the Carolinas, or maybe a couple that are across the Midwest, or maybe even another dirt track like Knoxville, they can find this to be successful, not only on the television side, but on the ticket side as well. So I just hope they try it. Just try it. What do you have left to lose by now?
Just once. Just once.
Just one time, There's a joke here, but we'll continue on. John Henry, who is also a part owner of the Boston Red Sox, and he's also has an owner's interest in Roush Fenway Racing. He's the Fenway.
He was also a steel driving man, wasn't he?
So, well, I don't think it's the same John Henry. He did say, or it appears that he's shown some interest in buying a minority stake in NASCAR. And we saw not that long ago that NASCAR may or may not be for sale by the France family. That is a report that has since somewhat been denied, but not fully. But it does sound like that at least part of it may be up for sale. And John Henry's name has been popping up as somebody who may want to try to buy some sort of an interest. I will say, if you go back in time and look at some of not like that. If you go back in time and look at some of the entrepreneurs who have come into the sport and invested into teams, George Gillette, Rob Kaufman, even though Kaufman still got a small percentage of Ganassi. John Henry's a guy who came in a little over 10 years ago when the economy was in the tank, and he stuck around. So he's riding the wave, through the good and bad. Wouldn't mind to see somebody like him have his hands on the sport because, he appears to be in it for the long term. And apparently he's had a couple of suites, not only at Homestead, but he plans to have a visit at Daytona as well. He's trying to get himself back in there a little bit, and we'll see if his name will be thrown into the ownership hat for the sanctioning body as a whole in the not-too-distant future.
Okay.
That's all I got.
Oh, sorry. You were on such a roll. I was like, he's just going to keep going for the next 5 minutes.
Folks, I've been fighting a cold. We're all cramped down for the holidays, trying to get everything we can, and we had nothing but technical problems before we got going. So we're all kind of running on empty. So we appreciate you bearing with us.
It's all right. Yeah, I saw that. One thing Tim had shared with us. Noah Gragson upsetting a few people with his failed victory lane kiss, which, honestly, it was funny because it was so pathetic. I think, for the most part, everybody just got a good laugh out of it. But apparently it upset a few people, saying that it was harassment and unwanted sexual advances and all sorts of fun comments like that, which, look, I try to be sensitive to it, but now, is it an outdated tradition? Absolutely. But a lot of the racing traditions are incredibly outdated at this point. Is it really that big of a deal? Well, considering she gave him the kiss later on that night and ended up being his date to, what was an awards thing, Eric?
It was the NASCAR Truck Series banquet.
Yeah, I don't think that is that big of a deal. Should you be going up and just trying to randomly kiss attractive or unattractive, I don't care, women or anyone? No, you shouldn't. That was I don't. It's on TV. It was meant to be kind of funny and
I have I have a I
Eric,
have
how
a
many
cold,
how many restraining orders
but
do you have against you?
none. But I will say I thought about throwing my 2 cents in on this, and then I thought better of it because I've been on the show since it has happened, and now I'm coming around full circle to it. And I think what I'm going to say is this: Noah Gragson is a young, talented, up-and-coming racer who has been involved in a couple of situations that have made him not look like the good guy. Whether that be aggressive driving on track, things that he said in a Fox Sports interview about the big wreck at Daytona, where he tried to wipe out as many trucks as he could, and then he said he was joking. I will say this: be aware that's not just for Noah. For any young up-and-coming driver, I feel like now more than ever, we're in an era where you really have to watch what you say and do. And this goes for me as well. And knowing that, and that's why there are college courses that are strictly based on social media performance and etiquette, because everything you say, do, and everything that's on camera and everything that you type and every time that you press send, it can be used against you at any moment's notice.
I saw those pics.
Now, well, I mean, yeah, it's basically a good example. We need personality in the sport of auto racing, desperately, and we're kind of getting it. If you go back and you look on YouTube when Ryan Blaney and Bubba Wallace drove to one of their races together a couple years ago and they were doing driver impersonations and whatnot, it sounded like they got a little bit of flack from somebody, but that was golden, and it was harmless, and it was just them two.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to be yourself. It's okay to be funny. It's okay to try to get a laugh, but also be aware as to who is watching, because this is something that, although it has a happy ending with her going to the banquet with him, in this society, it could have turned out a lot worse. I'm thankful for all involved that it didn't, but everyone just be aware. And that's where I'm going to leave that.
Very well said, actually. I think that's an excellent point.
Yeah, it's I was like everybody else when I saw it. The night that it happened, I kind of cringed a little bit, and I showed my fiance, and she kind of cringed a little bit, and and then
but they
obviously
end up kind of laughing at it too, right?
Yeah, and I mean, Corey LaJoy on Twitter called it the swerve of the century, which was perfection on his part of being creative. But again, the fact that they exchanged numbers and she went to the banquet with him, like it all turned out to be a happy ending. And the bottom line is that's how a lot of modern day relationships end up starting, as the dogs start brawling it out. So at the end of the day, it was harmless. But in this politically correct world, in a sport that is really generated by support, especially financially, you just have to be a little more aware. So. That's a lot. And again, I'm not perfect, but
no.
On that note, we did literally no show prep whatsoever.
Hey, I got something for you. Larry Mack is not just a Mac daddy anymore; he's a Mac granddaddy.
Oh, really? Which one of his kids had a baby?
I don't know. It was a Twitter thing, and I just saw it, and he was like, "Oh, welcome to the that traditional welcome to the world crap."
I live in Charlotte. I should know these things.
I like Larry Mack. He's always been one of my favorites.
How about this? And I'll pose this question for you too, Tim.
Uh-oh.
Larry Mack actually, this is going to give me a chance to find some more information on this. Larry Mack actually proposed that NASCAR go back to racing to the caution. And I was very surprised because some may draw that as a bit of controversy, especially if you err on the side of caution, pun intended. On a safety standpoint. Tim, again, you've been around the sport for a while. Is that an element of the sport that you necessarily miss? Do you think it'll generate more excitement if they do go back to that?
I see him.
We talked about this a little bit last week. It's okay with me as long as there's no issue of safety.
Mm-hmm. So, Josh, what about you? What are your thoughts on that?
Nope. I mean, I know what he's saying, and my thing is more on the safety end. But but we talked about again, like Tim said last week, and if it's at any point during the race, no, there's no point in doing it because uh, you're just you have more laps to go anyway. So just freeze them where they're at, and we'll reset and go again. If it's last lap, I'm okay with trying to if cars are just spinning and it's not a big deal. Um, yeah, I guess you could. You can, if they're out of the way, try to let the guys finish under green. But I believe it was Daytona. A couple cars hit the wall pretty hard, and you have medical vehicles that the ambulance, the first aid guys. They need to get to those cars. You don't know if the guy's injured or not. And like I said, if you would hit the wall, or each other hard enough that I was thinking, yeah, they could have hurt themselves or, whatever. And NASCAR was trying to let them finish under green, which I appreciate. But if those cars are still at speed on the track, you can't put the first aid guys out there because you're putting them in danger. And the ambulances and all that are great, but they're not going to hold up to getting hit by a car at speed. I mean, they're not wearing the same, Hans device and everything that the drivers are. So, no, just it's not worth it. And would it be more exciting? Quite possibly, but how excited were people over Dale Earnhardt's death? I mean, I'd rather get the crews out there, have everybody safe, and not have to deal with the added attention that you'd get from another driver dying or crew member.
There's a saying that really lingers around the motorsports world, and that is you can very quickly get lulled into a false sense of security, and we've seen that. I think that Austin Dillon's wreck at Daytona in, I believe it was 2014. I think that was the closest we've come to potentially losing a driver or any driver in a situation like that.
That's the one where the engine ended up in the right in front of the grandstands, right?
Well, it was the Kyle Larson one in the Xfinity race in 2013, and right. I think Dillon was a year or two later.
Yeah.
In fact, that might have been 2016. But nevertheless, I think it is still possible to get severely hurt. I mean, Eric Almirola broke his back. Dale Earnhardt Jr. with his multiple concussions. It is still incredibly possible to be hurt or killed in any of these races.
Well, Kyle Busch broke the foot and leg damage at Daytona, all because we put safer barrier everywhere. He'll be fine. Oh, no car will ever hit there, and then he hits it.
Well, I mean, for a wider look at this, how about on the IndyCar side where they are trying to find a fix for the catch fencing?
Okay,
but I think the problem is there's no definitive answer. Whereas, like, the safer barrier was a definitive answer. The Hans device was a definitive answer. Not racing back to the yellow was a definitive answer. That was more for Eric Martin, the ARCA driver that got killed in 2002. I don't think that they have a definitive answer yet on the IndyCar side. And I think, Josh, you've been a big proponent for the Halo. I don't know if that's a definitive answer yet. We haven't really seen that device tested except for, that big F3 crash that we had a couple of weeks ago. At Macau, and honestly,
I don't think they had the Halo.
So
no, there was no Halo. That was just that roll hoop behind that really.
You know what? You're right. I'm thinking of another F3 wreck that took place where the Halo ended up hitting the brim of another car. I'll have to do some research on it. But with the catch fencing deal, it's like they need something definitive before they make a decision. Yes. As far as racing back to the caution, I feel like that's a definitive thing that is clearly known to be safer. And look at the James Hinchcliffe IndyCar practice wreck a couple of years ago, where he was bleeding profusely. And those 20, 30 seconds, maybe more, maybe it would have been another minute before safety crews got there if that happened in a race and the track stayed green because they were racing back to the yellow. I know it's IndyCar, but let's just for the sake of argument, those seconds matter. I love the entertainment value. I wish we get rid of the double yellow line rule, honestly. But I don't know if trying to go back to racing back to the caution is the right answer. Just strictly for safety measures. I don't want to know that those seconds that were spent keeping the track crews at bay could have been used to, save a life down the road.
Well,
it may not seem like it could happen, but it could happen.
Well, I'm going to use that as a perfect segue. Alex Zanardi's wreck at Motegi, where he ended up losing both of his legs, and he was so close to death from bleeding out. I mean, he's extremely fortunate that the crews were so good and got to him so quickly to save his life. But I mean, basically, his legs were essentially torn off. I mean, and uh, if you think about it, especially if your heart rate is going because you're driving a race car, I mean, you're going to bleed out very quickly. So he's lucky to be alive, but had it been like you said, another 30 seconds or whatever, I mean, there's a good chance he wouldn't be alive at all. So I just no, don't race back to the flag. I don't care. I don't care what lap it is. NASCAR will keep toying with the restart line or the what was that line they were painting on the backstretch?
Oh,
Yeah,
the
that
overtime
thing.
line.
Yeah, that. Um, yeah, play with it. See what works. See what doesn't work. Each track is going to be a little bit different. I would love to see him finish under green. I think it's great. I love that they took that instead of just finishing under yellow and tried to make it more exciting. I think it's incredible that they did that. I love it. But you know, you don't go back to racing to the flag by any means. Now, my segue is going to be that Alex Zanardi was did some testing at Daytona this past week for the Rolex 24 that's coming up.
Yeah, it sounds like Zanardi's going to be actually competing in that event, which will
Yep.
be great. I think probably long overdue. He has been racing for a while since the accident, which as Josh mentioned, he lost both his legs in Germany back in 2001.
Oh, sorry, I thought it was Japan. My mistake.
Overseas. So
Not in good old America.
Yeah. So that's gonna be a good storyline to watch. I mean, the Rolex 24 is right around the corner. About a month and a week away, I believe. So, race season the off season is not that long. In fact, depending on who you ask, there is no off season.
It certainly doesn't feel like that here. I'm looking forward to the Rolex 24. I usually will watch it on my phone via the app in the downtime while we're down in Atlantic City. Which is kind of fun. It's going to be a good storyline. I think it's another way to get more people interested. I mean, it's a really awesome event, but it doesn't have nearly the same following that like the Daytona 500 will have. But Alex Zanardi has a special steering wheel that will allow him to control throttle, brake, and all that. And that steering wheel needs to come off, and it has to stay with him. Because the other drivers will be fully, able-bodied and driving regularly. Let's call it. I hope I didn't offend anybody. But I'm kind of curious to see how he'll get in and out of the car because I'm assuming they're going to have a guy over the wall to basically pick him up and kind of help lift him out. Not that he's unable to get out on his own, but to make the pit stops a bit quicker. I would assume that they would have to have somebody jumping over the wall and, kind of carrying him out. I don't know if you have any input on that, Eric.
Well, I know when he was running I think it was a Brazilian stock car tour when he came back from the leg injuries, that he pretty much had to use his upper body strength to lift himself up and out of the cars. I know he's also a unicycling champion, so he's got a lot of upper body strength on his side to help him in these situations. And I believe that many of the racing championships around the world. Not sure what governing body would oversee the IMSA series, but they would require the drivers to pass some sort of extrication test just to make sure that in the event they were in a precarious position like a fire or being pinned up against the wall or something like that, that they would be able to get themselves out of the car under their own power if they were still conscious and able to do so. So I'm pretty sure they'll be watching and monitoring that. But Josh, yes, when they do come down for a driver change, because it has to be so fast paced, they'll probably have somebody come in and pull them out. But I've seen them do that to drivers who do have two well and functioning working legs. So
I can imagine your legs end up going numb. Barry Hulse, he was a tech guy at Wall for quite a while. He's run modifieds or sportsmen or whatever and everything before. We're going back a few years here. I called him old. Deal with it. But I remember he was telling me a story about he got in a modified, but the seat wasn't quite mounted correctly, and his leg was going numb while he was
Mhm.
out there. And I can imagine doing a 2 hour stint. I mean, you're going to be tired. It would be nice to have a little hand getting out of the car after all that. In an emergency, you're able to get yourself out. Yes, that's important, but to speed things along during a pit stop, then yeah, that's fine. I don't think there's anything wrong there.
Yeah, it'll be a fun story to watch. It's a really good, heartwarming story, and we're wishing Alex all the best. And I wouldn't be surprised if he runs incredibly competitive come time for the Rolex 24. Formula E did start this weekend, debuting the new Gen 2 cars that were able to go the entire distance without a car swap during their event. Began in Saudi Arabia, and Antonio Felix da Costa, driving for Andretti Autosport, ended up grabbing the win. He was challenged up to the last corner by John-Eric Verne, who actually had a penalty for some type of technical infraction, still kind of brushing up on what exactly took place there. But it was a brilliant drive, and I'll tell you, I love the racing in that series before the new car. Man, they look good. They're fast. Watch Formula E this year. It may sound like you're at the dentist, but you have to watch Formula E this year. It's amazing.
That was a good way to put it. I do love that series, though, and they are very competitive. I just wish they'd give them a little bit better tracks. I didn't get a good look at Saudi Arabia, but like when it was at Hyde Park when they raced there, it's too narrow.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
you know what I'm talking about. Just give them a little more room to. It doesn't need to be as wide as Baku. It just needs to be a little bit wider, give them some room to actually race and set each other up a bit more, and be able to see a little bit farther ahead, other than these really high walls. But that's going to be an exciting series to follow. I think they're going to have an incredible season. And we'll just see how they come along. Has anybody heard anything on Robo Race, where that's going?
I haven't. I know they debuted a new Jaguar stock car series. It's all electric with Formula E. That was on Fox Sports as well. I watched that. The cars were incredibly even, and there wasn't that many of them.
Okay.
But as far as the artificial intelligence side of the racing entries, like we were talking about, I haven't heard anything on that yet. I thought it was supposed to debut with Formula E, but apparently that hasn't happened.
It probably got delayed. They're backed up with all that, same as all that Tesla stuff, where everything's behind in production. I'll just assume that's it. Okay. And following that, Eric, anything else?
Well, Sam and I, along with Eric Graham
Who?
and everybody else at the World Karting Association, yes, we're getting set for our trip down to Daytona International Speedway for Daytona Kart Week, which is essentially the biggest week in racing for the World Karting Association. Us guys with the Manufacturers Cup Series are going to be on the road course that is nestled to the inside of turns 3 and 4 of the oval. The road race guys are going to be racing on the oval circuit, very similar to what the IMSA sports cars will be running on in about a month's time. And then just behind the backstretch on the speedway, the dirt track will be going with a few hundred dirt competitors. It's a huge thing. Full coverage will be available at ekartingnews.com all weekend long, along with live streaming of audio of the play-by-play call of the races by yours truly. And the Margay people, who basically run a fully funded Arrive and Drive series, have over 32 entries coming down for their class. There'll be about one of 9 that'll be competing on the weekend. And in there, they have 3 IndyCar drivers, including that of Zach Veach, Gabi Chavez, and Juan Piedrahita. Piedrahita made the transition over to sports car driving after he wasn't able to materialize an Indy 500 deal for last year. And James French, who is also an IMSA sports car driver. They will be partaking on the weekend festivities. We could also expect to see Sebastian Montoya, the son of Juan Pablo Montoya, return to try to defend his win from a year ago. And there were whispers that the late Dan Whelan's kids, notably Sebastian, who was the one who took the victory lap at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway earlier this year, they may be in attendance to race there as well. So much will be taking place. It's where a lot of the stars of tomorrow, some of the stars of today convene in one of the most simplistic forms of auto racing, even though some of these teams go to the max with their setups and mechanics, and it's wild. And I've grown to respect karting to a whole new level from when Eric and Sam first told me about it. And I'm not saying that because I get paid to travel and talk about them with these people. It's incredible, and I'm really looking forward to it. And I actually have to pack my bags once we get off here and be prepared to drop them off because they're going down before I am. So
Now, I'd like if you can get me video of Juan Pablo Montoya yelling at Sam. Uh,
Oh, I definitely will. I will definitely try to. So Haley's coming down with us. I'm not exactly sure what she's going to be doing yet, but she'll probably be helping with registration or something. But they do have a duty for her to come down and partake in. But if she has any downtime, I would tell her to watch and just make sure that if anybody starts screaming at Sam, we get it all on video.
Hashtag no invite. Additionally,
Yes.
any word on Fittipaldi?
Emerson was there last year with his son Emo, and we expect Emo to be back as well. And I was hoping to see Pietro in like a senior card or something like that, but I don't know if we'll see that with him being now the reserve F1 driver for Haas. So would love to see it though.
I'd like to see Hinch and Rossi down there duking it
Yeah,
out.
the Zach Veach, Gabi Chavez, and Pedro Hita story was pretty incredible last year
No,
because they drove from Indy. I don't know if they're doing that again this year, but they drove from Indianapolis down to Daytona to run in this race. And Zach won on Friday, Gabi won on Saturday. I think this year we're racing Saturday, Sunday. For more information, visit worldkarting.com and also keep your eyes peeled to ekartingnews.com.
Actually, I did want to ask you. You mentioned that you're going to have the road course, by the backstretch, and where you're the other karting in 3 and 4 there. Which are you announcing, or are there separate feeds? Do you know for what's going to be announced, or the play-by-play?
So the road race guys are a little bit insane, and they'll be racing on the big track. And I say that wholeheartedly. If you go to YouTube and you look up like karting at Daytona and you see the guys who are running on the banking, it's insane. That'll be taking place around us. They don't get as much attention as the Manufacturers Cup Series side do with what we'll be doing. The dirt racing is incredible. Usually we finish up before they do, but they have lights and we don't. However, e-karting news and most of the WK's focus is on the Manufacturers Cup Series, which is what we will be taking part in throughout the weekend. That's where Sam will be. That's where Eric will be. That's where I'll be announcing for. Reason being, we get a lot of the karting manufacturers in the mix. A lot of the talent comes up through that ladder. And they are trying to have a similar feel for Charlotte. That'll be taking place in June approximately. That was an announcement that was made not that long ago with the WK. That the plan is to hopefully have a Manufacturers Cup Series event on a temporary road course, which is similar to what we have down at Daytona, even though it's not temporary. It's still not the road course that we're accustomed to.
Right.
Have the road race guys run the Charlotte Roval, and then have the dirt track in use for some of the dirt track karting events. And that's scheduled to be taking place the week of June 21st and 23rd. Not sure if everything is set in stone just yet, but that was the ideology, is to have a mid-year event similar to Daytona. So it's cool. It's really cool.
I know you love it now.
Oh, yeah.
You were sold after, like, what is it, the second event, I think?
The first event I did was at GoPro Motorplex, which is now, I guess you can call it my home track. And I fell in love with it. And what I haven't been able to do yet is get a rental cart and drive there. And that is on my bucket list. Even if Haley doesn't let me, I'm still doing it. So I cannot wait to do that. That track is nuts.
I'd like to see it. Pixar didn't happen.
You'll get both.
Oh, jeez. I know there's a few other things that have been mentioned, but I think we're coming up on time. So, real quick, just because we're going to be taking the next 2 weeks off. It's our annual holiday break. We'll be for Christmas and New Year's and whatever, Kwanzaa.
Chris Mahanza Kwanzaa.
Kwanzaa. Eric, an avid supporter of Kwanzaa. Anyway, so that's going to be our break. We're going to take a little time, reset. I might get some new intros edited. Ooh. I'm sure Eric is looking forward to that. But in the meantime, it's been another incredible year. How we're still doing it, and I don't even know if it weren't for Tim and honestly just the Riggleman family, getting us all these amazing, wonderful guests to talk to. Things I never expected to happen, and I mean, it's almost becoming regular for us. So I mean, it's just been incredible. It's great to have Eric back on, even though he's farther away than he was. Um, uh, Sam, who knows if we'll ever see him again? You know, those slide jobs are taking over. Um, but with that, I just wanted to say, uh, 2019. What are our predictions? Tim, I'm going to start with you. What are your predictions for 2019? Whether it be the show or just racing in general, anything at all. What do you expect? Uh, what do you think we're going to see?
Well, hopefully the show will continue, and maybe we could have everybody on the same night. There's always seems to be somebody not on the show. As as far as as far as racing, you can never tell with racing what's going to happen. That's what half of the excitement is. You never know until the race is over. Uh, I just hope Wall Stadium continues after, and we go on from there.
All right, that's pretty good. Eric? No, nothing. Eric?
Oh no, I don't know. I feel like I'm in Europe because my internet just keeps lagging on me.
Okay.
It's
Blame it on the lag.
so yeah, always. That's my number one excuse. Now, with the show, just like what Tim said, and actually I'll echo what Josh said. Huge thanks to Scott, Nancy, and Tim Riggleman because they have given us an all-star caliber lineup of guests these last few months, including months that I wasn't free and wasn't available when I was preparing for the move to come down here. I expect that to just continue to expand and continue to grow as people utilize this as a platform. Huge thanks again to Erick Rudolph for coming on to join us today. And again, today was just like one of those. I think one of us broke a mirror and didn't tell anybody because we've just been bitten with bad luck throughout the night, whether it be internet lag, audio problems, whatever. Erick Rudolph was a huge sport in kind of coming through it with us. And we can't thank him enough for that. I expect things to continue. I expect the show to continue to gain momentum and this to be a big platform for many, both short track racers and national level racers to showcase their talents, thoughts, opinions, and everything in between. As far as racing, I'm going to go on the optimistic side. I'm going to say that the changes that are being made in NASCAR are going to have a positive effect on the sport, may shake up the competition entirely, but I'm really looking forward to that race in Atlanta, which will be the first time we see that new aero package and seeing how it plays out as far as the racing product is concerned. And then I'm interested to see how it parlays over to Las Vegas, which will be the next time that package is used on a track that is much fresher in terms of pavement. And on the open wheel side, things really look promising for IndyCar. So far, they have 30 confirmed entries for the Indy 500 already, and we haven't even turned the calendar to 2019 just yet. And it sounds like there could be up to 39 or 40 for the Indy 500, meaning that bumping will be back in a big way, and there will be some fast cars that may not make the biggest spectacle in racing for the Indy 500. That makes me excited, and hopefully Formula One gets all their ducks in a row because I'm tired of seeing Mercedes dominate every year. But I'm hopeful. I'm optimistic. And as Tim said, I'm also hopeful for all my friends back home at Wall Stadium Speedway. That track could have its best year ever and continue on for many years to come.
That's awesome. For me, I'm going to stay with well, let's start with the show. My 2019 prediction is that somehow, probably me buying the damn ticket, Eric will be around for a live show in February.
When in February?
For the 500. I will buy your plane ticket and get your lazy butt up here.
I'm actually flying home from Disney the Saturday before the 500. So we were going to go to the 500, and then we realized that I would have had to – the only flight home would have been that Tuesday, and I didn't want to take off 2 more days of work. So we backed the trip up one day.
Okay. Well, I'll get you here one way or another. I'll send a van full of guys in masks, and they'll kidnap yours. We'll make it work. From there, I think that as long as Tim and Scott stay on board with us, I think that we're going to get some more awesome guests in the near future, and it's just going to grow, but it's going to take time and effort, of course, from everybody. From that, I want to say local racing. My prediction is honestly that Wall is going to have an incredible year, and provided the weather holds out, we're going to see some great car counts, and I'm going to hope that will secure another couple years for the track as well. On the national level, I think we're going to see some type of major change in IndyCar regarding safety equipment, whether it be on the fence side, whether it be they finally get that windscreen or halo thing finalized. I know they're looking more for the windscreen, but I think something big is going to happen there. On the NASCAR side, I think we're going to slowly see news reports of coming out or press releases for what their plan for the following year is going to be, and we're going to see some reactions from the fans, and I think they're going to tailor that to suit the fan base and still keep the younger people interested. And it's going to be an interesting year, to say the least. So that's what I got for that. And to round things out, what have we learned today? Let's start with Tim.
Oh, my God.
Oh,
I learned we had a lot of technical issues. And I also learned that we should do a podcast from Disney World between my brother and Eric going to Disney World every other week. We'd probably be better off doing a show from there.
No. Okay. Eric, first off, is everything okay over
What is
there?
Eric doing? Fighting with his dog?
He's eating the wine corks. Like, I don't understand. They don't even taste that good. Because Haley and I, every time we open a bottle of wine,
Probably smell like the liquor.
Yeah, well, that's probably it. So he's taking after his father, but we put the wine corks in like these beer mugs that we have sitting on the end of the island, and apparently he's been pulling them out and chewing them while I've been doing the show, and I don't know whether to be angry or impressed, but either way. I learned how the fire starter got his nickname. I learned that Timmy Riggleman was spotting for him for his lone modified win, even though Eric didn't seem to be able to remember that for some reason. And I learned it's going to be back. I'm happy to be here. I'm not feeling all that great.
That's par for the course with Eric Rudolph.
Yeah, well, it's and I'm joining Sam is now the new me. So until we see Sam's face, I wish Scott was here so that way he can call him the new Heartbreaker, because I was the Heartbreaker for a while. So now it's Sam.
He's dead to me now.
So I wouldn't go that far. So.
Okay. That's it for you then, Eric?
Yeah, to like go. This dog's gonna be pooping corks for a while.
All right. I'm going to assume that Eric's done then. I'm going to say that today I learned that Eric Rudolph wants to fly a slingshot. I learned that politics is ugly and muddy. I learned that John Henry was, in fact, not a steel-driving man. And most importantly, I learned that Eric's dog is about to have a butt plug. Yeah. The next few days are going to be fun. I got to clean that up before Haley gets home. Oh my goodness. Good
that was quick and creative. I give you a lot of credits for that. That's the best way to end the year, I'd say. All right, I got nothing. To everybody who's going to be traveling for the holidays, please be safe. We want to thank you all for your support.
Stay off the roads. Just stay off the roads.
They do that too. I just want to thank everybody for their support. All of our guests the last few months. Everyone who's made the RPM podcast from its inception back in, Josh, what was it? The beginning of 2016, I think it was.
Yeah.
And to what it is today and how it continues to grow, continues to expand. We still battle through some technical gremlins here and there, maybe on a crazy day, lack of preparation. I'm talking about myself today. But there's a lot of passion And that's what racing is all about, passion. And everyone that you see, everyone who has a say, and everyone who plays a part in what makes the RPM podcast what it is today is passionate about the sport of auto racing. And that's why we do what we do. And we want to thank you all for coming along for the ride. And we promise there will be more in store for 2019. Thank you. Merry Christmas and happy holidays, everybody. So I think I'm done.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. All I can do is echo what Eric said and go to wall.
So good night, everybody.